you're the apple of my eye. Girl, I never loved one like you. Man, oh man, you're my best friend. I scream it too. There's nothing there ain't nothing that I need.
Describe your family.
So my family consists of myself, my mom, my dad, my stepdad, and my sister. But to add on to that, I would consider all of my best friends my family as well. Got about 6 girls that I would consider to be my sisters. So yeah.
So I grew up in a single mother household. Always been in contact with my dad, just never lived with my parents together.
My direct family is pretty small. It's only me, my sister, and my parents. My extended family is huge. It's like typical like South Asian family dynamic of having like a million cousins.
You know, we get along. We kind of do our own thing every now and then, but like we're all there for each other, and I guess that's what matters.
Describe what home means to you.
Home is where the heart is. No, I'm kidding. Well, actually not really. I find that like home is a place of comfort where you're free to be and express yourself at any given time, whether that's with family. I often find that's actually with friends, more than family perhaps, just because I find, especially as a student, you spend more time away from your physical home.
Home means to me somewhere that you're comfortable, somewhere where you can feel safe to let loose, wear your comfy clothes and not be judged by your family.
Like, it's shaped by the things around me and the people around me, but it's also very much like unique to what I think it is and like what I need from it.
I think at the end of the day, like family does end up being a huge part of what home should feel like.
Does culture play a big role in your family life?
We have our kind of family traditions and religious holidays that we celebrate, but we're not a particularly cultural family.
My parents are very religious people, and that has impacted in terms of how culture has impacted our family dynamic. My sister is very cultured. She takes part in a lot of like South Asian dance and singing, and I used to do a lot of South Asian singing as well. Culture is a huge part of how we communicate with each other, such as staying home and like cooking Indian food.
Both my parents are immigrants, so I'm first generation. My dad was born in Ghana, which is in West Africa, and my mom was born in Jamaica. So especially with my father, his African traditions are very, very deep. He tries to go back as often as he can, and in fact pretty much all the home cooked food I have is Ghanaian food, which is awesome.
I was born and raised in Sri Lanka, so our culture is quite different to Western culture, so yeah.
I think culture is really important, and it kind of like makes me want to be more involved with it, but it's not really like a huge impact on my family. Pick a holiday. How does your family celebrate it?
For Christmas, my parents are divorced, so every year my mom and my stepdad will welcome my dad and his side of the family over to our house, and that's always been something that I've loved and admired about my parents.
And then the next day we go Boxing Day shopping, and that's when we get our presents. So that's like a big thing that we do.
I'm gonna pick New Year's. So we celebrate in April. It is a festival or a holiday. We get together and make authentic Sri Lankan foods and exchange gifts.
Okay, so the holiday I will choose is Thanksgiving. So for the past couple of years, my dad has forced me to drive or essentially get on the bus all the way to the No Frills on the furthest part of town and pick up a small young turkey, and me and my dad essentially come home, we decorate it, so to speak, stuff it with vegetables, put it in the oven, and then I end up finishing it.
What do you think is an average family?
Where father goes to work and mother stays at home with 2 kids.
The family of 4, like the brother and the sister.
The mother, the father, a brother, and a daughter. Somebody, like a family that seems like they've really got it all together and fulfills the stereotypical roles.
If you want to go like straight average, people will think like, oh yeah, there's like husband, wife, kids, and they're all doing their own thing, the husband's working. But I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore.
The nuclear family of like the mom, dad, and the 2.5 children was very common for a very, very long time. However, I feel like with times are changing and like just life in general, like that's not really realistic.
A family that I think throughout all odds just like loves each other. That to me is like my standard and like my average, I guess. Because the thing is, you can't choose your family, and you have to love each other sometimes.
How is your family similar or different to your perception of an average family? I guess my family's like pretty average, all things considered, but I mean, like, my mom earns more than my dad, so that's pretty, like, not what you would expect from an average family.
Well, I guess, like, for those traditionalists, they would say that I pretty much come from an unconventional family. One, because I was born to two individuals who weren't married at the time, and two, because I grew up for the majority of my life with only one parent, primarily. I think kind of the dynamic I have with my parents now is actually stronger.
I think a big difference in my family is, and it's something that we see a lot, is that both my parents work at home. So I see both of them working very hard all the time.
I think when you take your own family into account, there are obviously like pros and cons. Like there are times that I think about how my family has really come clutch for how they've treated me, but there have also been moments where I wanted to pull their hair out. But I think that's a natural part.
Do you see any stereotypical gender roles in your family?
Yes. So to say that my dad is a traditionalist would be an understatement. Like my dad is very much like, yay, nuclear family. Oh, I don't know if I'm cool with homosexuality. Oh, like you're gonna like make sure you know how to cook and clean and like all of that fun stuff. Whereas my mom is very much like, okay, cool, you're doing this, like free to be you and me. So I think that there's very much a disconnect in the values and beliefs that both of my parents have.
Both of my parents are very hard workers, and my dad actually does a lot of the cooking and takes on his fair share of the housework as well. So I've always appreciated that, that they don't fall into the stereotypical roles of mom and dad.
Not particularly. I think that a big part of that is kind of, as I've mentioned, that my mom works alongside my dad to run our horse farm, and she'll do just as many of the physical labor jobs as he'll do.
Yeah, actually, when my grandma passed away, because I'm a girl and my mom, like both of us weren't allowed to do any like of the ceremonial things. It was all my brother and my dad. They were the only ones allowed to do anything.
My mom has always been a boss woman, and I think that is very different from the stay-at-home mom that I would normally think of. And then to add on to that, also my parents, like my mom is still very good friends with my dad even though they're divorced, and they've always welcomed each other into their lives, and they've always encouraged that they're both present in mine and my sister's lives. And when I compare that to my friends that also have divorced families, I think that's very different.
Thanks.